welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. We are a little over halfway through 2023, and so like a lot of other people, I thought I would share my favorite reads of the year thus far. And I'm going to go by the same rules that I have set for myself when I do my end of the year favorite reads video, which are basically, these are the books that absolutely moved me. There is no set number. I don't do 10 or 5 or anything else. I just pick the ones that absolutely moved me either to tears or left me with my jaw hanging open in awe or just spoke to me on a level that would indicate literary greatness. So these are the books that just blew me away. And I will be including no rereads, so otherwise Ursula K. Le Guin would be appearing here because I did reread the first 4 Earthsea books and I absolutely adore them. But I cannot include Le Guin's Earthsea books because I've already read them, so no rereads. I am not ranking these. These are not in any particular order whatsoever. And I'm only going to include 1 book per author. So I have read many, many really great books, just wonderful, good books that I've enjoyed tremendously. But these 5 are the ones that have so far just absolutely left me with a sense of wonder and beauty and sorrow and awe. And so I want to share them with you. And so I also want to mention the book that I am currently reading. I can't really count it because I didn't read it in the first half of the year, number 1. Number 2, I haven't finished it yet. But I have a feeling that if I had read this earlier this year, it would be on this list. I'm well into Ships of Merrier now by Jenny Wouldnt. This is the 2nd book in the Wars of Light and Shadow, and oh my goodness, it is so good to be back in Athera, the world that Jenny Wouldnt has created here. And the richness of the prose, it's just, I feel my brain firing on all cylinders, and I'm thoroughly enjoying the experience of being bathed in the beauty that Jenny Wouldnt has created in her writing. Is just an experience in and of itself, but this really does have everything. It is, I have a feeling when I finish Wars of Light and Shadow, it is going to be, for me, one of the greatest reads in the genre. It is one of those big, it's an 11-book series. She's finishing off the 11th as we speak. And I just have a feeling about this one. And I'm far enough into Ships of Merrier to say, wow. But I can't count it. So let's move on to the ones that I actually am counting on this list. First, we have Ian C. Esselman's Forge of the High Mage. Surprise! There's a Malazan book. This is the only Malazan book that I have read this year, and it was just so wonderful to be back in this world. I love everything by Stephen Erickson and even Ian C. Esselman. The two of them together have created what is, for me, the most compelling literary experience available to humanity in all their Malazan series. And so I just love being in this world. This is a great story in and of itself. It is the 4th book in the Path to Ascendancy series, which is sort of the prequel series to Novels of the Malazan Empire and the Malazan Book of the Fallen. And I love that we get to know some backstory on some very interesting characters in the Malazan world. If you've read Malazan Book of the Fallen, for example, you'll find out things about certain characters you think you know, but actually their backstory reveals layers to them that will help you appreciate and understand these characters even more. Plus, Esselman just does a beautiful job of incorporating some very important themes in here. He tackles religion, he tackles othering, he tackles a lot of the familiar Malazan themes that these two authors just do so well. And speaking of thinking you know someone and then finding out something else about them, that happens in here. A very Malazan thing indeed. So just for all the usual Malazan reasons, I loved Forge of the High Mage, and I can't wait to see what else I learn about this incredible world that these two authors have created. Another one that I just blew me away, left me in tears, was not Volume 7. I just happened to be holding this up. It's the ending to Vagabond, the ending that we get that Takahiko Inoue gave us, because this is an unfinished series, but this manga series does have an ending of sorts, which was a kind of exhibition, which I understand is a traditional thing that is done when a mangaka has finished a series. They have an exhibition in a museum type setting, and we are so fortunate to have, even if anyway never does come back and finish Vagabond. First of all, this series was just an incredible experience for me. So much in here about flow, about throwing oneself into something 100%, about the connection between us and all the people in our lives and the world. Just such a beautiful, moving series. And yes, there's a lot of violence as well, but wow, I found myself so moved by this. But it was the ending that really, really got me and blew my mind. And there's just some incredible art. Just that alone is worth looking at, that ending that Inoue has given us. Incredible art. I could sit there and stare at it. I wish I could go. Wish I could have gone to the exhibition itself. I could sit there and stare at that art in and of itself, but as an ending to the story, I found it so deeply moving. Such a beautiful statement about human experience, and just felt a sense of wonder and awe and sorrow. There's a melancholy to it as well, but oh my goodness, I'm so glad I read that series and got to experience that ending. So, and that was a series that I talked about with Murphy. We had videos on each of the bind-ups, and I'm so glad that I started reading manga, because there's some incredible storytelling out there in that form. So, another one that I've talked about in places already, so it's probably no surprise to see this on the list, is The Book That Wouldn't Burn by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in his newest trilogy, the Library Trilogy. This is the only one to come out so far. And wow, I mean, this is Mark Lawrence at his absolute best. He combines genres without a thought to why not, you know? I mean, he just does it. He does that frequently, but here he really goes for it. And in terms of chronology, another hallmark of his is that he messes around with chronology. Oh my goodness, does he mess around with time in here? Identity and knowledge and memory, and how all these things are so wrapped up in each other. And there's some just beautiful characters in here. There's a wonderful story at the heart of this book as well. So I found myself just completely in awe, and it's maybe the first time I can say, the first time I think I've ever thought at the end of a book, I need to reread this book right now because of what Mark Lawrence does in this book. I just got to the end of this and was like, wait a second, I need to reread this book right now, because it does stuff that will surprise, I think, just about any reader. Even a veteran Mark Lawrence reader will be surprised by what he pulls off in The Book That Wouldn't Burn. Some beautiful stuff, and I just can't wait to see what he does with this trilogy. I think it will go down as one of the greats in the genre and in literature in general. Speaking of great literature, my next entry also was one that left me in tears repeatedly, and that was Fool's Fate by Robin Hobb. And this was a tough one because I also loved Fool's Errand. There are a couple of key events that happened in Fool's Errand that really grabbed me. And so I had to think about which of these there was going to be a Robin Hobb book here, since I read the Tawny Man trilogy. This, by the way, is the third book in the Tawny Man trilogy, which didn't actually start as my favorite. It took me a little longer to get into this, and that's a typical Hobb thing. Often it does take a couple hundred pages for the plot to get going, and this one took even longer, for me at least. By the time I got to the end of this, there were just multiple times when I had to put the book down because I couldn't see because of the waterworks. Just a tremendous emotional journey. Plus, Hobb also incorporates some very important themes. She also deals with othering in here. She deals with love. She deals with friendship, with connection, the relationship between the characters. Oh my goodness. I mean, I don't think anyone does it quite as well as Robin Hobb. And so she has absolutely cemented her place among my top 3 authors of all time. with this trilogy, with the Tawny Man trilogy, and I cannot wait. Soon I'm going to be taking up the next sequence in Realm of the Elderlings, which, you know, a lot of people will say that it's not their favorite necessarily, so I have lowered my expectations slightly, but I still think, okay, it's Robin Hobb. It's not going to be bad, so I'm really looking forward to the Rain Wilds Chronicles and finishing out the year with the final trilogy. Fits in the Fool, I believe it's called. So yeah, I mean, this for me is definitely a year of Hobb, and I already was a huge fan, having already read the first two trilogies, but I'm so glad I got to read Tawny Man in the first part of this year. Finally, this one is probably going to surprise my collaborators that I'm reading the Books of Babel with. I think it probably will surprise people who have heard me talk about the Books of Babel so far. And I loved Senlin Ascends. It was, for me, an easy read. It was a quirky read. It was some crazy stuff. I loved some of the ways in which Bancroft really goes for it in Senlin Ascends. And then for me, Arm the Sphinx was probably even better. It was just a quicker read, and we had the world established, and I got to know the characters even more, and developed even deeper attachment to those characters. And I loved those first two books. And then there was The Hod King, which I found to be kind of disturbing and difficult in places. And so it would be wrong for me to say, oh, I enjoyed every moment of this. I didn't. There were parts of this that I found very challenging, that I found because of what happens to some of the characters. There's some tough stuff, because Bancroft is including a lot of social critique in here, a lot of critique of patriarchy, of what it does to people, how it can make monsters out of some people and victims out of others, and the ways, in the particular instances in which certain characters that I really felt attached to became victims. Really just, it was hard for me. But that's a good thing to, I think, sometimes, and I understand that people would feel overwhelmed by that sort of thing and wouldn't want to experience that, particularly if they've gone through something that, you know, they might find some of the content in here even triggering. But I think it's important to be challenged and to think about these things. And that is one of the things that great literature does, is it challenges us to confront the ways in which people hurt each other. And many times as a result of being caught up in social systems. So I don't want to make it sound like this is some, you know, really abstract, very deep, you know, just philosophical read about social criticism. There's an exciting, swashbuckling story going on as well, but I found myself challenged by that book, and I really appreciate that. And I do think that one of the reasons why I found it difficult was I'm very attached to these characters. There are certain characters in there that I've developed a real affection for. That's a sign of a great writer. So I really think that Hod King deserves a ton of praise for that. It doesn't always have to be an enjoyable read to be a favorite read. And so, yeah, great stuff from Bancroft there. I am very much looking forward to finishing out the series, the Books of Babel. So those are my reads from the year so far that I think most moved me, either to tears or to thought, or even disturbed me in some ways. And I think that's what reading can do. It runs the gamut of human experience. And so, yeah, this is all great stuff. I'm looking forward to the second half of the year, when I hope to find more books to compete with these for my favorites of the year. But I'm really happy with things so far. Thank you so much for listening to me gush about these wonderful reads, and I would love to hear your thoughts on any of them that you might have read as well in the comments. And that's it from me from now. Until next time.